got a question on one of the Psalm magic videos, and I get this one or something like it quite frequently. The Psalm was a spell to eliminate gossip or something like that. And they said, this situation in my life has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with my thoughts. It has nothing to do with my ego. It's all about them. And so I want magic that takes care of them. I don't need magic that takes care of me because I don't have anything wrong with me in this regard. It's all them. I'm being victimized by them. I understand that completely. I understand what that feels like. We've all been victimized to some degree or another. Some of us worse than others. Those of us that have gone through rape or physical abuse, torture, kidnapping, things like that. We don't like the idea that a magic spell to stop something would infer that we had anything to do with it. I didn't ask to have any of this done to me. The tacit implication there is it seems sort of like victim blaming. When you have a spell to stop abusive behavior that deals only with our own inner thoughts and that deals primarily with overcoming our own ego thoughts and our own abusive thoughts, etc. On the surface, I could see why some people might believe that's what's happening, but I assure you it's not. The way that Psalm magic works is the way that any real magic works. And that is by destroying an unwanted thought form and changing it into a thought form that is desired. It's the only way that you can change anything magically. Now, there are people that don't really want that kind of magic. What they really want is a glamour. And a lot of people think casting a glamour is somehow more desirable than any other kind of spell. They believe that maybe it's even harder and more advanced. No, it's not. You cast glamours every single moment in this world. All a glamour is making something look like something that it's not. Changing the appearance of something so that you have the illusion that it's something else. Any kind of glamour, by its very nature, is fleeting. It's ephemeral. But if you're trying to do true magic, which is the science of the Magi, and you're trying to find permanent change in a situation, you don't want a glamour. You don't want to substitute one illusion for another illusion. You want change, real change, lasting change. And the only way to have real lasting change is by changing the underlying thought form that gives the physical reality its sustenance. When that thought form is gone, that physical reality must go with it. There are no two ways about it. It's just law. It's magical science. It always works, no matter what. So it's very different for us to approach a spell, especially one that's dealing with abuse or feeling unsafe in the presence of somebody. It's very important to understand that when we're working on real significant change, that we must find where that thought form exists in our own experience and dismantle it. Now, this is not the same thing as saying, why did you create that reality for yourself? You must have attracted that person into your life, or you must have done this to yourself, and it's really your fault that this is happening to you. That's not at all a magical perspective. A magical perspective is, for some reason or another, this thought form is here, and I want it gone. I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of that. I don't care why. I don't care how. I just want it gone. If it's important for me to understand why and how and all of that, I'll deal with it later. Right now, I want this situation taken care of. And the only way to do that is by dismantling the thought form that sustains it. That's why we do what we do in magic. Now, Psalm magic is very much that way. I know some people believe that they can chant the psalm and that the magic is going to go out into the world of form and change the world of form and act somewhat like a glamour. That doesn't work that way. It doesn't. You're going to be sorely disappointed if you believe that just chanting the psalm is going to have some sort of magical effect. That's a very superstitious notion. And we don't want superstition. We don't want glamour. We want real magic. We want real change. The only way, whether you're using a psalm or anything else, for that real change to occur is by having it occur in the mental world first. That's the causative plane, the astral plane. Let's look at, for instance, an addict or an alcoholic. Let's say that there's a family and one of the parents is an addict or an alcoholic. Let's say that it's the mom who's the addict and she's really going through it and it's been years of it. And there's all kinds of patterns in the family as a result of that addiction. And there's definitely all kinds of patterns with her spouse, with the dad in that family because of that addiction. The types of patterns that spouse develops regarding this addictive personality that they're with can frequently become extremely toxic, very unhealthy, very destructive. And some of those patterns end up being more destructive than the addiction itself. You go to any Al-Anon meeting in the world, just drop in and listen. You're going to hear about how the spouses or the children of these alcoholics or addicts end up being sicker than the addict. The addict goes through treatment, they go into a program, they get sober, they start getting better. And then these other people, if they're not treated as well, they don't get better. How many times have I heard stories of an alcoholic getting sober, getting their lives together, and the kids wanting to live with them, not the spouse? And here the spouse's story is, well, I put up with all of this. I've kept the family together. I'm the hero here. Well, the kids don't see it that way. They know that mom, now that she's gotten sober, is really great again. So we like mom better. The people that aren't the addicts need treatment just as much, if not more sometimes, than the person with the addiction. It's not their fault that the person was an addict. They didn't ask that the person be an addict. They didn't create that reality for themselves, but they developed extremely unhealthy problems. And so many times, even though on their surface mind and with their words, all they want is for that person to stop drinking. All they want is for that person to get help. But unconsciously, that's not always the case. They don't want to give up all of the stuff that the neurotic, sick stuff that they get, all of the payoffs that they get from that person being addicted. And so they subconsciously and very surreptitiously try to sabotage the addict's recovery. And frequently this happens below the surface. They don't see that this is what's happening, but other people do. It's not so easy to say, well, it's just them. It's never just them. We always have our part in it too. Even though it's not our fault that this is happening, it is our responsibility to take care of, first and foremost, our side of it. And then from a magical point of view, not only do we take care of our side of it, we dismantle the whole thought form as it relates to us. And then we are free from the problem. Either we're free from the person or the relationship heals. Things get better because that thought form is gone. But you can't dismantle a thought form if you aren't willing to look at your part in it. Even if your part is 1% and their part is 99%, you have access to that 1%. You don't have access to their 99%. You have access to that 1%. And that 1% is a point of entry into that thought form that you can dismantle it in your life completely. But if you're not willing to take care of your thoughts, your attitudes, your part in it, you have no power. The best thing that you can hope for is that you can learn how to do a glamour that gives you temporary relief, but it's never going to solve the problem of you being abused or you being mistreated or them gossiping about you or whatever. You have got to get deeper where that thought form exists and dismantle it, revoke it, disown it. And the only way you can do that is by disowning your part in it. Even if you don't think that you have any part in it, you have to investigate it as if you do. It's very powerful to take charge of our part in anything because that is, like I said before, our point of entry into the entire thought form. And that gives us power to dismantle the entire thing as it relates to us. It may not dismantle it for the person. They may have to go abuse somebody else, but they won't abuse you anymore because that's gone. You've dismantled the thought form. But you cannot destroy that thought form if you do not believe that any part of it exists inside of your mind. Anytime we have a problem that we truly want help with magically, we have got to take responsibility for our part in it. When I was 15, I was raped at gunpoint by this really scary guy. I thought for sure I was going to die. It was just awful. I remember several years after that thinking, I wonder why that happened. And I started looking back over my life and all the different abuse that I'd suffered from so many different people since I was a baby. All of the abuse that I'd had. Abuse, abuse, abuse. I didn't create the abuse. I didn't ask to be raped, but it made sense based on the thought patterns within me. My thought form was people abuse me. And that law that people abuse me turned into a command. People abused me. And so even though it wasn't my fault, I didn't ask to be raped, I didn't ask to be abused, I was participating in it on some level or another. And just by taking my part out of the thought form, I was able to deflate the whole thing. And I no longer got abused by people. It just stopped happening. It stopped. That's very different from saying it's my fault. Why did I create that reality for myself? I did dovetail in with people who had the thought form, I abuse people. Anytime I would come up against somebody that wanted to abuse the personal internal law that I had established, people abuse me, it was a match made in heaven from my ego's point of view. We co-created that reality, the two of us. Once I stopped playing, no more abusers. Abusers never darkened my doorway again. But I had to get to that point where I did the work. I got under the hood and got into what those patterns were and where I did have some involvement in it. Very important to understand the distinction between doing that and blaming yourself. Blaming yourself is not undoing the thought form, it's reinforcing the thought form. Saying that it's your fault is very different than taking responsibility that the thought form is there and that you're going to do something about it. I didn't create this mess, but I am going to clean it up. I didn't create this pattern. I was too young to make a conscious choice. This was just a defense mechanism that I developed. But I am going to take responsibility that this thought form is here and clean it up. I'm not going to wait for everybody else to just stop abusing me. Regardless of why, I see my pattern, I see my part in this, and I'm saying no to this. My relationships no longer are abusive. My relationships are holy relationships. And if the relationship isn't holy, I'm not participating in it. I have the ability to bless each and every person that comes into my experience now, but that doesn't mean I have lunch with them all. It doesn't mean that I date them. It doesn't mean that they get to abuse me. By dismantling your part in the thought form, they no longer have access to you. You can't change other people, but you can change yourself. And when you change yourself, you have power over who gets to have access to you. Everything is energy. Everything is vibration. But you can't change that vibration. You can't fine-tune that vibration if you're unwilling to know what that vibration is. And part of knowing what that vibration is knowing where you're participating in it. A lot of times people think, if I had any participation in this, I'm at fault. No, you're just doing your best. You're just trying to make it from A to B, grasping at straws in a very confusing world, trying to make things work for yourself. It's not your fault. But once you recognize that, you have a choice. You have power. You're addressing it from the point of view of the thought form itself and your involvement with the thought form. You can dismantle it so that you are free from the situation at hand. So yes, it does have something to do with you. Yes, it does have something to do with your ego. Yes, it does have something to do with your patterns. It does. And if you're not ready to see that and you're not ready to look at that, that's fine. But we don't change the magic to accommodate your own unwillingness to work the magic. We have to just allow you to come to that when you're ready. And in the meantime, you just have to do what you have to do to stay safe. But if you want lasting change, if you want this person unable to affect you in any way, we do it by extreme honesty with ourselves and our participation. We roto-rooter those thought forms and get out every little aspect of our involvement with it. Get out every little attachment that we have to that thought form. And then that thought form has no more power over us. And so that person has to leave you alone. That person has to move on. Unless they're at a point in their experience where they're able to heal. Sometimes that does happen. We dismantled our part in a thought form, and the other person has a spontaneous healing because they were ready for that. That does happen. But frequently that doesn't happen. What happens is that they just disappear. Your physical proximity no longer exists. They're no longer part of your life. I know that it sounds like we're avoiding your issue when we talk about turning your attention inward and investigating and applying the wisdom of those spells to you. It looks on the surface like we're avoiding the person out there. But if all we did is take that session with the psalm and say, and you did this, and you did that, and you're going away, and I'm destroying you, and what we're really doing is reinforcing the thought form, reinforcing the notion that you could be victimized by this person. And so the best thing that we can do is put up a wall, and may the stronger person win. You hope that you're stronger than them. When we're doing it this way, you're dismantling that thought form. You don't need to be stronger. You don't need to be stronger than that person because there's no more fight. They've been deflated completely. They have no access to you. They're gone. There's nothing they can do about it. You're not fighting against anything. You're not even experiencing anything outside of you at that time. You're only looking inward. When you look inward and you clean up a thought form internally, everything has to change. It has to. There's no hope involved. You don't have to wish. You don't have to cross your fingers when you take a breath and hope that there's oxygen in your lungs. You don't have to hope that you come back down to earth when you jump up in the air. It's just how it works. And the same thing is true for magic. When you address the thought form of any situation, either to make it into something that you want or to dismantle something that you don't want, it has to happen for you. It must. And this is why we talk about working within your sphere of influence, because when you start hoping and wishing while you're building a thought form, you're putting holes in that thought form and it's all deflated. You have to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. You have to have faith, imagination, will, and secrecy. And when you have that witch's pyramid balanced while you're building or dismantling a thought form, nothing can stand in your way. It's just as much of a given as the fact that there's going to be mourning tomorrow. I understand where you're coming from. I understand your dismay in wanting me to have given you a spell where all you did was attack that person and make them pay. But the way we do real magic is we don't worry about them anymore. We worry about us. We build and dismantle the thought forms as we want them to be and know that the physical world is going to have to follow suit. And it's powerful, and it always works, and it's permanent unless you decide to dismantle that thought form and start something else. The science of the Magi is doing what works. Yes, real change. Yes, physical results happening. But those things only happen when we address the causative plane. We don't worry about the physical plane when we're working magic. We know that takes care of itself. When it's time for you to take care of a problem and you're coming to something like a psalm or any other kind of really well-written magical formula, understand that the only way for you to have power over that situation is on the causative plane. And you have to withdraw your involvement in what's going on the external world, at least while you're working the magic. Regardless of what lag time there might be, just know that it's working. Just know it has to work. And the more you do this, the more you'll see that it works. And the more you see that it works, the faster things work and the easier it is for you to apply these principles to things that seem to be outside of your sphere of influence. And that's how we expand our sphere. That's how we get more powerful and are capable of doing bigger and better things. We build a track record. We do it again and again, and we get those results. And that creates a positive feedback loop. Just keep working your magic. You keep coming back to doing these things and let the physical manifestations take care of themselves. You'll know when something works. It's right there. And you can check that off and say, ooh, spell worked. Now what? And you'll work the next one and it'll work. And you'll get better and better and better at it. But you're getting better because you're working on the causative plane, not because you're trying to rearrange the illusions with casting a bunch of glamours that have absolutely no staying power and don't do anything for you. They don't do anything for you other than delay what you really need to be doing, and that's working deep within where the thought forms exist. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be.